Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, y'all. Shalom, family. It's good to see you all. Hope you're doing well. Well, America, apparently, the credit card debt in this country is going through the roof. People are maxing their cards out left and right and not paying anything back to the credit card company. So the debt has rose to $1.25 trillion. So, yeah, people are desperate. I can see a lot of people, especially if they have not been working and they're in a dire situation. They can't find work because, it's a lot of people in this country that cannot find work. And if they got their credit cards, yeah, I can see them maxing all of them out just so they can survive. So, y'all, this thing is a mess. They said America is literally drowning in debt. And since the country announced that it's insolvent, the US Treasury made that announcement, they said the debt got even worse from the time of the announcement. So you can tell Donald Trump and his administration, they're not trying to do anything to make this place better with debt. He's actually driving the debt up. And, we know the inflation is bad. People are barely making it out here. Folks can't afford to buy a house, folks can't afford to buy rent. A lot of homeless people on the streets now, y'all, have full time jobs. They're sleeping in their cars. They can't afford the rent for the apartment and they can't afford to buy a house. So they're working full time, but living out of their cars. And that is a growing thing that's happening across the country. And it's getting worse. So, y'all, look, no matter what, we're going to have to stay close with the Most High and pray, and He'll be there for us. But for many of these Gentiles, this is just another sign that judgment is here. It is really here. If you think our people are out on these streets, oh, honey, it's a lot of these Gentiles on these streets, homeless. A lot of them. A lot of them. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Please give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you.
The president just said in 4K that he loves inflation. This is after he was asked about inflation rising to over 4%, the highest in 3 years. Did you know 49% of Americans cannot afford the true cost of living right now? Foreclosures in the United States have reached a 6-year high. And the collective credit card debt of Americans has reached an all-time high of $1.25 trillion. And I can go on and on. What has this country come to? where you can have the president of the United States, the most powerful person on earth, basically say that he does not care about the struggles of the majority of the country he represents. It's cruel and it's heartless. So I ask, if they don't care, why do we?
Check out the complete disconnect when the Fox News reporter asks National Economic Director Kevin Hassett about the rising number of credit card delinquencies because people are using their credit cards more for daily necessities. And his response, the credit card companies will be just fine.
Wall Street Journal says in the first quarter of this year, the percentage of credit card balances that were at least 90 days delinquent rose to 13.12%, according to data released in May by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That's the highest level in 15 years and the most since the period following the 2008 financial crisis. People say they're using those cards to get through necessities because they can't afford what's going on. So your message to them?
Right. Well, we talk to the CEOs of the credit card companies all the time, and we do see some increased stress, like the numbers that the Wall Street Journal quotes. There's not any kind of threat, financial threat to the credit card companies.
He can't even hide the fact that he cares more about corporate profits than he does the American people. And if you need further proof that this man is incompetent and unqualified for the job, here's another clip. And if you made it this far into the video, please don't forget to follow or subscribe to the InfoDrip Network.
And so what we're seeing right now is spending based on optimism about the future. If you look at how big the boom will be when the straits open, then it's reasonable for people to be optimistic.
If you look at how big the boom will be when the straits open, then it's reasonable for people to be optimistic.
So I was just maxing out every credit card, like everyone that comes on the show, like every American out there. We got $1.6 trillion in credit card debt in this country, by the way. Ooh. Crazy amount. Defaults are to like 7%, which is insane. 7% of credit cards defaulting.
That's crazy.
Another day, another dollar that we don't have, because new reports are out that says that the United States and Americans are in more debt than ever. And that's not a good thing, even though the White House will try to spin it and say that, oh, people are using credit more. They're using them to go do other stuff. And, you know, money's flowing, so the economy's good. That's a lie, because people are using credit cards to cover basic needs. And with the inflation outpacing the wage increases for Americans, it's spelling disaster. They're saying a large portion of that is mortgage debt, which is about 13.8 trillion. They said school loans is about 1.3 to 1.7 trillion. And then they said household credit cards and things like that, that's about $2 to $3 trillion. They also mentioned about the whole mortgage thing, that mortgage rate hikes went up. So they said on average, each person who pays their mortgage that has one of those variable rate ones and it's not fixed, or even if it's fixed and it has that weird fine print, it went up $126. So healthcare went up. We reduced healthcare. Food went up. We reduced food stamp recipients. Also the Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, also they didn't give them as much money. My mom's on SSI. She said the annual increase that they got, it doesn't even cover what she has going on. So now I need to help support my mom because she lives in another state. So everything is outpacing what we make. And the government is consistently spending. So the money we're putting into the system is not going to match the need.
Check this out.
Is really firing on all cylinders, just like the corporate sector you're seeing in the earnings reports. And they're doing that because they have so much more money in their pockets. In fact, I had the head of one of the big 5 banks in my office yesterday going through the credit card data. And just as Secretary Bessent said, credit card spending is through the roof. They're spending more on gasoline, but they're spending more on everything else too.
People keep pointing to consumer spending like it's proof the economy is doing great. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Are people actually thriving, or are they just surviving on credit cards? Because there's a massive difference. When Americans are forced to rack up credit card debt just to afford basic things like groceries, rent, gas, other necessities, that's not the sign of a strong economy. That's an economy that's running on desperation. Record consumer spending doesn't mean workers are winning. It can mean that wages haven't kept up with inflation. It can mean healthcare costs are crushing families. It can mean housing is unaffordable. It can mean people are borrowing money at 25% interest just to stay afloat. That's not the sign of economic strength. That's financial instability hiding behind spending numbers. And what happens next? Oh, I'm sure we all know that banks make billions off interest payments. Corporate profits soar. Meanwhile, working people get trapped in cycles of debt that they can never escape. An economy cannot be considered healthy when people need debt to maintain a basic standard of living. A healthy economy is one where people can afford without maxing out a credit card, where wages rise with productivity, where families can save money instead of drowning in interest payments. So the next time someone brags about strong consumer spending, ask them this. If the economy is so great, why are Americans going deeper and deeper into debt just to survive?
We have negative debt to income ratio in America. American savings are drained. We have $1 trillion in credit card debt. We're at 120% debt to income ratio. We have an overvalued stock market by 230% based on Warren Buffett's indicator. We have a bond market that's destroyed. Okay. Russia was taken off the SWIFT system. Remember when Biden was president? Think about that. Russia was weaponized by the US dollar. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa working to de-dollarize. And now the Straits of Hormuz are bringing America down to its knees. Every time the straits are closed, one day gives 3 days worth of damage. We're 2 months in now.
The total household debt is sitting around $18.8 trillion. That's crazy. That's the total household debt in America. $18.8 trillion. Now, remember, Elon Musk just became the first trillionaire on paper. But the household debt in this country is 18 times higher, almost 19 times higher. So in General's article today, the credit card crisis is the affordability crisis with interest. Americans are not just swiping.
Record $1.25 trillion in credit card debt. This is the highest level ever recorded. Now, at the same time, and this is the troubling part, credit card delinquencies have reached a 15-year high. 13% of all credit card accounts are now at least 90 days overdue. Again, this is the worst level since the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. These numbers reveal something important about the state of the American economy. Consumers are not simply spending because they are confident about the future. Increasingly, they appear to be spending because they have no choice, and they're not spending their savings. They're putting everything on their credit cards. For millions of households, credit cards have become less of a convenience and more of a survival tool. The reason is, of course, very straightforward. The cost of living has risen dramatically over the past several years. Food now costs remain elevated, and housing expenses.
This not a good sign for the economy. As you can see in this chart, more and more Americans are falling behind on their credit card debt. The delinquency rate has been going up quickly for 2 years, and you can see right here, it is not slowing down. And this type of data, delinquency data, is a really important indicator for the economy. Because for better or worse, a lot of our society and economy runs on debt. And when people do not pay their debt on time, that can ripple through the entire economy. Obviously, people struggling is bad enough in itself. But when this kind of things happens, it can spread to consumer spending, which can hurt corporate profits and GDP growth. It could also spread to other kinds of delinquencies, which then hurt the banks and lenders, and it creates this kind of negative spiral within the economy. And with inflation now outpacing wage growth, it's hard to imagine how this gets better because people are losing spending power. So I do think this is a legitimate indicator of economic stress. Maybe it's a precursor of a recession, but there's really important context that you should all remember here. The total amount of credit card debt in the US is 1/10 of the mortgage market. So if you're thinking delinquencies on mortgages sent us into the great financial crisis in 2008, that is true, but this is a much smaller scale. So although this data, it's not good, it's something to keep an eye on. Right now, it looks more like a precursor to a normal type of recession, not a huge global systematic financial crisis like we saw in 2008.
Well, I completely disagree with him on that. First of all, the Straits of Hormuz being closed impacts many nations across this earth. Not to mention, I've done live streams on countries that ran out of fuel. So I don't know what he's talking about. So, anyway, y'all, this is going to get worse. People are desperate. So, like they said, they're now using their credit card for day to day living, which means they don't have the income to cover their expenses. So it is bad. And, these jobs, a lot of people are getting other jobs. The ones that are, they said they're not paying enough money. And a lot of people are locked into these jobs where they are not making enough money to cover their expenses. They did once upon a time, but not anymore. But, before these folks are out here complaining, who set up the system? Y'all set the system up to work this way. You never cared until it started impacting your life. Now you care. But see, you waited too late to care. That's the problem. You waited way too late to care. And there's no turning this around. America's never getting out of debt, y'all. I don't care what they say. Donald Trump got this new Treasury Secretary talking about he's going to wipe out all the debt. No, he isn't, y'all. It is impossible to get rid of all the debt that America is in. And if he does, he must have did some type of criminal act to wipe it out. He committed a crime to wipe it out. So this is a train wreck that was waiting to happen for a long time, y'all. And it is now here. It's now here. But unfortunately, many of these people that are using credit cards for their day-to-day life, really, you're putting yourself further and further in debt. You really are. Because, I just hope you can make good on those payments when they come in, because those credit card companies are going to want their payment. And if you are struggling financially, you will be struggling to pay that bill, whatever you use. So, y'all, it's real dire here. It really is. How you doing, KD? It's real dire. Stay prayed up. And make sure you seek the Most High's face like he told us to, because we sure gonna need to do that a lot. My son and I, we were talking about, because I was telling y'all how, to me, the sun feels different. It is something different about our sun. I think the Most High is getting ready to cleanse the earth. It's something going on. Anyway, none of my fruit trees are bearing fruit this year. There is not one piece of fruit on my trees, and usually it's loaded around this time. I have a tree full of pears, I have plums, peaches, and there is absolutely nothing this year. I can't even remember the last, I don't think it's ever happened where I had a summer and my fruit trees did not bear fruit. This is literally the first time this has happened. And it's actually eerie to look out at my trees and they're barren, because they have never been barren before. So it is creepy to look out and not see a piece of fruit. And we're having all these extra hot days and there's nothing out there. Nothing. And I'm like, wow. Y'all, it said we would see things we never seen before. I have never seen, looking around my state in New Jersey at all the fruit trees around me, and none of them are bearing fruit. Even the ones that are in neighboring yards, those trees do not have one drop of fruit on them. This is absolutely crazy, y'all. It is crazy. So, no, something different is definitely going on out here, especially with our son. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. But I have another live at 5:45 that we're going to talk about. Y'all, I did not realize how bad that earthquake was in the Philippines until I saw a few videos. So we're going to take a look. Man, that thing was bad. That was bad. I mean, that was scary that an earthquake can be that strong. So you will see it at 5:45. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And just remember, you can always stock up on your hair products. Shalom, family.